All right, everybody, welcome back to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by 26shirts.com/Pittsburgh. It is great to be back with you. And the Steelers, of course, are going to be great to have back because they have been on a bye week, which every single NFL team has to have at some point. And it just so happens this past weekend was ours. Hopefully you found time to do the things that you've been putting off because the Steelers were on or something like that. And plus we have the added benefit this week. We get a Monday nighter, so they get that one extra day of rest as the Miami Dolphins come to town on Monday night. Here to discuss the Steelers and everything involving our black and gold is Mr. Ben Anderson. Ben, how are things for you this fine evening?
Just fine. I have a gripe about the Monday night game.
Okay.
We've already had to go a Sunday without football, which, honestly, that kind of sucks as a fan.
Yep.
It's good for the players. I'm glad they got a rest, and especially for like the injured guys, it gives them an extra week to take some time off, and for Mason Rudolph, it gives him an extra week, literally, to clear his head.
Yes.
But then, not having football again this Sunday and having to wait until Monday night, that sucks. Sorry. It just sucks. And I'm a little pissed. So
I agree with you. We're ready. We're ready to see the Steelers. The Steelers are 2-4, and yet we're kind of, excuse me, I'm still getting over this cough here. We're still chomping at the bit. We want to see this team in action. We were given a little bit of a tease before the bye because they went out to Los Angeles and beat the Chargers in front of a somewhat partisan Steelers crowd. I still can't get over that. It's just hilarious.
Somewhat.
My
God.
Goodness.
It was a Steelers home game.
It was. I mean, it was
again.
It was, and I know I can't think of who broke this down. It was somebody, but they always say, "Well, the Steelers travel well." No, the Steelers don't travel well. That's just where the fans live. There are millions of fans in California, and especially Southern California. They didn't travel from Pittsburgh. They might have lived in Pittsburgh at one point. Most of them probably haven't. They're just fans.
They did, yeah.
Yeah. And it was just – and then, of course, the whole Renegade debacle. Oh, my God, that was funny.
That was funny. That was funny. I got to give him props. That was damn funny. That really was.
Yeah, but to your point, I agree. It makes the weekend that much longer, and then we got to go to work all day on Monday and wait around for the game. And it is what it is. Monday Night Football has become a phenomenon, as we know. It's maybe not what it once was when you and I were younger, but still obviously a big deal, especially when our team is playing. Ben, let's discuss kind of some health issues here as well as some roster stuff. I'm not gonna spend any time on Anthony Chickillo in terms of what is going on with him.
Why not?
Well, look, there's 3 misdemeanors. It sounds like he and his girlfriend got into it. She hit him. He grabbed her. I say I don't want to get into it. What I mean is I don't want to spend too much time on that particular side of it, more on the football side. But yes, please give me your take on what's happening there.
Well, I mean, it's a he said, she said thing, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm not in any way siding with him on this,
right,
because he is the bigger, stronger human being in this instance, and definitely should have shown better judgment and more control.
Mm-hmm.
He says that she punched him first. She says no, he punched me. He grabbed me by both arms and pinned me against the wall, and so I punched him in the face. Then he threw me on the ground and breaking my phone, and so I went into the bathroom and waited for the police to show up.
Right.
Either way, she's got bruises on her arms. So, he messed up. He did.
Yeah, absolutely.
The end. And I still maintain and have all along that he was going to be cut next year anyway, because next year he's owed $5 million in compensation, and he's a backup.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not a good backup, in my opinion. So you don't pay a guy like that $5 million. The Patriots pulled one over on the Steelers by getting the Steelers to pay Chickillo that much.
Yep.
They really did. And Chick's going to be a free agent. in March. That's my absolute prediction. I'll be shocked if he comes back onto the active roster this season, even though we are looking at misdemeanors.
I agree. Excuse me. I agree. I think you spelled it out perfectly. I know there are segments of our fan base and segments of society that feel that even when a woman strikes first, that it changes the rules. I am of the opinion that it does not. And as you stated, Anthony Chiquillo is the larger, stronger, more physical human being in this situation. He has to have the control and say no, and not progress with what happened. And it sounds like he couldn't do that. And that's where we are. And he's currently on the commissioner's exempt list. He is allowed to do quite a bit of stuff, actually.
Yeah,
he can be at the facility. He can lift weights. He can work out, kind of practice on his own type thing. But I mean, he can't participate in games. He can't be a member of practice per se.
Nope.
So it's, and that's why, and that leads me to the next part of this is that, a lot of us thought this was all too perfect because the Giants cut Tuzar Skipper, who we all immediately were like, hello, perfect opportunity to right a wrong, get this guy back. We all thought he should have at least been on the roster as a depth guy at outside linebacker and a special teamer. And they could have done that, and he went through waivers and has re-signed with the Giants. And in the meantime, the Steelers have stayed with Jaron Elliott. And Ben, I'll ask you, what have you seen from Elliott that makes you say, oh, that's why the Steelers wanted him versus Skipper?
Nothing. I don't, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of difference between the two players. I mean, Elliott's probably a little bit better edge player than Skipper is. Skipper is a better pass rusher. It should be noted that Skipper passed through waivers and re-signed to the Giants practice squad. So he can still be poached by any team at any point.
True.
If the Steelers decided to change their mind and reached out to Skipper and offered him a spot on the roster, he can take it. He can also turn it down because, I mean, effectively he's not truly a free agent because he's on their practice squad. But if somebody wants to offer him a job on a roster, he can accept it, and he doesn't even have to tell the Giants he's doing it. He can just leave.
Right. And that's part of the rule is that if you are poached from a practice squad, then you are put on that team's 53-man roster. So,
yep.
I think the Skipper ship has sailed, and plenty of puns intended there. But, that's where we are. And it was another interesting commentary maybe on how Steelers fans can fall in love with a guy. And again, we were very adamant about Skipper coming back, not because we thought he would be the next Hall of Fame outside linebacker, but because he was a guy that was familiar with the system and had played well. Not because we expected great things out of him. No. We just thought, hey, here's a chance.
Yeah. And he played well against backups. That should be noted. And really, one other point I want to make here, and we've made it dozens of times on this podcast.
Yeah,
guys like Tom Brady and James Harrison and other guys that were late round draft picks. Greg Lloyd even is a great example. Guys that were late round draft picks or undrafted, and maybe they were cut and came back and forth. Those are the exceptions, guys. Those are not the rule. Those are the exceptions. For every James Harrison, there are 1,000 guys that wash out of the league under the exact same circumstances and never accomplish a damn thing, much less becoming a Pro Bowler or All-Pro. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So the comparison that people constantly make every time you say, well, this guy he's been cut by two teams now. And well, James Harrison was cut by two teams. In fact, he was cut by the Steelers twice. You know what? So what? So what? Well, the Steelers have cut lots of guys multiple times, and nothing happened with their careers either. And I'm not saying that Skipper won't be a decent pro, but to assume that because you really liked him in the preseason that he had the the ability to become a Pro Bowler is ridiculous. It's silly. You have to wait and see what happens with guys. And I know that the fans feel a lot of sentiment toward this guy and they want to see him come back in and develop as a Steeler. And maybe that can happen. Because I'll be honest, what I said before, I still feel. I don't see a great deal of difference between Jay Elliott and Skipper. You know, maybe they thought that Jay Elliott could play both sides better and that Skipper's only good from the right. I really have no idea why they had this preference. But obviously they had one because they didn't put in a waiver claim, and neither did anyone else in the NFL.
Well, and that's a great point. I think there are any number of reasons as to why they didn't put the waiver claim in. And, you know, you pointed out one, if not more of them there, in that it could come down to something like we like Elliott's versatility a little bit better. We like the fact that he's better against the run. We'll sacrifice that he's not as good of a pass rusher to take the more well-rounded guy, you know, whatever. But it obviously was something like that that led them to that decision, and it is what it is. So it's the Jay Elliott depth at linebacker and special teams show. So let's just move on from that. You know, the one guy we do have to mention that is now lost for the year is Stephon Tuitt.
Oh, man.
And, yeah, we all know he was having a really, really good year. He was just having a good football year. And, you know, I think, sadly, I think there's some of us that probably saw this and were like, oh, God, here we go again. And I'm sure he's probably doing that more than any of us ever thought of. But he's out for the season. And I don't know about you, Ben, but I think this is a huge loss.
It's a gigantic loss. I mean, I still think they're going to be able to pressure the quarterback well, but where they're going to be hurt, honestly, is those rundowns when Tuitt could play it both ways. I mean, he still – it wasn't just rushing the quarterback. He could still get after it in the run game, and he had a bunch of tackles for loss. I mean, the guy – oh, man, I need to look at his stat line real quickly since we're talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, he was
tackles
having
for loss. He already had 6 tackles for loss this year through 6 games. 3.5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. It's a big deal getting those tackles for loss because it puts the other team behind the chains. And obviously, you guys know that I love Javon Hargrave, and I you know, am happy that he's getting more snaps as a result, or will get more snaps as a result of Tuitt going down. But I didn't want to see it happen this way. I'd rather see, you know, all 3 of those guys healthy and available, not see Javon Hargrave get the kind of work he's going to get because Tuitt went down. And also as a result, Hargrave's price tag will probably go up next year because he's going to get out there on the field and prove himself. But he's not the run player that Tuitt is. He's a demon in the pass rush. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Well, you know, it's funny you mentioned that because as I'm just kind of sitting here considering Hargrave, you know, the maybe the cynic in me, whatever, they're probably going to run his wheels off now because they know there's a very, very high likelihood he's not going to stay with the Steelers. He's going to sign for big money elsewhere. So they're probably going to say, what the hell? Let's just use him while we got him.
Well, I think they'll probably go with the hot hand. That tends to be what they do. Yeah. And looking back at the snap counts, Tuitt was playing in the neighborhood of 70% of the snaps, the defensive snaps all in. Over the course of this season. So, you know, that'll probably be divvied up. It seems like Alu was the guy who was designated to take a bigger role. But I think really he's going to be the guy who's in there on those earlier downs where they think they might be running the ball. And then they'll bring Hargrave in, or they'll move him over from nose and have him play when they just have 2 down linemen in passing situations.
And to fill that spot, they brought back LT Walton. Does that say anything to you about the way they feel about Isaiah Buggs at all?
No. I mean, Walton still, Walton was cut and he was
Right.
signed with the Giants, and then they drafted Bugs. If Walton beats out Bugs, Walton will get more snaps. If not, then Bugs won't be active. Excuse me, then Walton won't be active on Sundays, and Bugs will. We'll see what happens. I think they saw Bugs as a guy who has a lot of potential, but was an unfinished product. And based upon what I saw, they're right. He was a really unfinished raw product over the summer. And if they think that Walton is better prepared at this stage of the game, they may go with him.
Yeah, and it's going to be curious to see what they do, and I think a lot of us are probably going to use the disclaimer this week that, well, it's just Miami, and it's going to be hard to really glean anything too seriously, from the game, and I am assuming we're going to win this football game, and of course I know what happens when we assume, but everybody's just going to say, well, it's just the Dolphins. Let's see what happens now when we have to play a little bit more competitive team like the Colts that we'll have the following week. So, I'm not going to get too ahead of myself on this. I agree. I think Alu becomes obviously an earlier down guy, and then Walton's going to get sprinkled in there as well. It's just sad. I feel bad for Stephon Tuitt.
I agree.
I thought he was, he was going to have a Pro Bowl type season, based on what he was doing, and it just really, really sucks for him. With that said, you're listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by 26shirts.com/Pittsburgh, and right now you can get I'm surprised somebody hasn't done this shirt sooner. It's a really cool Penguins themed shirt. And it just simply says, "Let's do that hockey," which if you watch Saturday Night Live at all, I think it was Chance the Rapper that coined that phrase during one of the skits. It was pretty funny. But you can get that right now, and $8 from every shirt sold goes to the Pittsburgh area charity Cuddles for Kids, which is definitely worthwhile and worth your money. And again, you're getting a fantastic shirt that is super comfortable and really well done with the graphics and everything else. And just to throw this out there, 26 has now, they're up over $660,000 that they have now donated in their time to causes all over Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Chicago. So just an amazing company there that Dell's got going. And by the way, quick shout out to Dell. He's got to be freaking over the moon for his Bills. He's one of the founding members, I believe, of Bill's Mafia. So he's just got to be loving it. So, Ben, we're going to get our look again at Mason Rudolph this coming Monday night, and we haven't seen him since he left the field wearing a helmet without a face mask, and quite frankly, looked like the great Gazoo from Flintstones fame. You younger kids will have to Google that. I keep hearing people say they're going to finally open the offense up for him. They're going to finally let him do the offense like Big Ben does it. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. I mean, does he need the training wheels taken off, or is this just a matter of he has been just more comfortable taking what the defense has given him so far?
I think he's been really conservative, and I've seen a number of instances where if he'd waited a half a second longer, he would have had somebody open well down the field, or instances where he had guys open downfield and he just opted for the check down. He seems to lock in on his number one receiver and not go through his progressions. It's like number one or the check down, nothing else. He's skipping 2 and 3. And, I put that on Mason. I got to be honest. I don't think that the play design has been that bad. It hasn't been great. It has not. It was much better. It was much better last week in Los Angeles. It was much more creative. Yep. And I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Finkner. But there have been some times where, the offensive game plan obviously wasn't working and there weren't any adjustments made. And on top of that, we had poor execution from the quarterback and the offensive line, and it made things worse.
Sure.
But, I'm not that guy who's willing to give the coaches or the players a pass in those kinds of situations. I want to look at it and see what happened. what happened here? Who was at fault? Who was at blame? Was it the scheme? Was it the design? When fans watch, a lot of fans, when they watch a game and they watch a play,
right,
and the quarterback throws the check down pass, they assume that's what he was supposed to do. And that just isn't the case. And if you go back and you have an overview for the passing concepts and you see on the all 22 when we're watching the film, what could have happened had he opted for someone else, had he made the other read, that's when you go, yeah, that's the quarterback. And then when, you look at some other things and it's obvious the scheme isn't working, then you put that on the coach. And I'm telling you too much right now. I just want to make the point that I'm not willing to give these players a pass for the way this offense is playing this year. And Mason is one of the guys who has to pick it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. And I would just also say as a side note, if you are obviously you're a Steelers fan if you're listening to this podcast, but if you're kind of a football junkie, it's worth your $100 investment to get yourself NFL Game Pass so you can watch the All 22. Okay, the All 22 film will absolutely open your eyes to a lot of the things that Ben was just talking about in terms of what goes on, both offensively and defensively, but in this particular case, in terms of what the quarterback sees. And you can see routes develop. You can see the line blocking. You can see a little bit of everything going on there. And it is literally invaluable to you as a fan to be able to watch that because, like you said, Ben, when a quarterback dumps it down to a running back, a lot of fans jump on that and assume, why would you call that play? Why would you throw the ball there and not further down the field? Well, again, there's a progression. And if your progressions are not open, if they're not telling you that's the throw, then eventually you get to that check down. Sure, there are quarterbacks, and Mason has been one of them, that if that number one guy isn't there, he immediately goes to the check down often too soon. That'll come with more playing and more maturation as a quarterback. At least we hope it does. I did want to ask you too, Ben, about the Chargers game. We got our first real look at Benny Snell. What were your overall impressions of him, especially there in the second half where he was basically carrying the load?
Well, two things. One, he's not afraid to a few things, I guess. He's not afraid to hit the hole really hard when there's not really a hole. And he was making some room for himself. I liked that. The other thing is it seems to be that the more you give him the ball,
yes,
the stronger he seems to get. But the third thing, the thing that really jumped out to me was when he got to the second level, it was really evident that he didn't have any burst.
Mm-hmm.
That if he had NFL type burst, NFL running back worthy burst, when he got to the second level on a lot of those runs, he would have been gone. He would have been gone.
He had some creases.
He would have. I mean, honestly, even James, if he could have gotten some of those carries and gotten to the second level, those would have been long carries because he's got burst and Benny Snell doesn't. But, the other side is this, James had a really nice game in the passing game. Really nice game. Made a lot of guys miss out in the open field. I thought his footwork was pretty nifty. Mm-hmm. That's not something that, when James came in, we really thought he had, and he's developed it. So the running backs as a whole really played a nice game in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I thoroughly agree. He didn't have a ton of rushing yards. As you mentioned, he was so good in the passing game was Connor. Snell, you wonder if they'll take a similar approach that they had with Bell early on and say, hey, when you come back in next year, maybe drop 10 or 15 pounds. I'm not sure that's going to work with him. Do you?
No, I don't know. Maybe. I think he needs to hire a footwork coach probably and just work on his burst. Maybe drop some weight, get leaner. Yeah, that could help him. Work on his power a bit, but not too much. You don't want to bulk up your legs too much, but some. Yeah, I mean, he needs to just work on explosive movements and foot quickness, make guys miss, and try to get a little bit of a burst. If he just had a hair more burst, I mean, he probably would have gotten 100 yards in Los Angeles, and he just doesn't have it.
Well, and again, his first, major action, and I was impressed, and I think he's a type of kid that I think's got some potential in a future right now, at least as long as Jalen Samuels continues to be out. And we do get Roosevelt Nix back this week, and I know that's huge for Danny Smith's crew on special teams. But I'm curious to see if Randy Fichtner does anything with him offensively. The Steelers have not exactly been great in short yardage, and you wonder if getting him back there, maybe in front of a Benny Snell, in short yardage situations isn't something that happens, or maybe they just kind of, get him in a little bit easier, worked him in easier rather. Another guy too that was not on the field at the end of that game in the final defensive stand was TJ Watt, who is dealing with a bit of an abdominal issue. Now, from everything I understand, I think he's going to be okay and he'll play, but I don't know that he's 100%, Ben. And with that, a linebacking core already thin. You got any concerns going into Monday night?
Yeah, a number of them, and you outlined them. I mean, it could get down to the point where you're gonna play all four linebackers. If Watt doesn't play, you're playing three of them, and your best one's off the field. So yeah, it's a concern. I wonder what the nature of the injury is, and I've been trying to find out. And most of the time with injuries, you're not going to get much information, but it's probably a strain. I mean, it happens.
Sure.
It's not fun to deal with, and hopefully he can get past it and play. Tomlin did say he was going to be sidelined a bit through the early part of the week, so it sounded like he expected him to be available, but wasn't sure. So we'll see. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Chick being out, this definitely impacts the team. Yeah. Jay Elliott, and I'll bet you all four of them dress. If Watt dresses, that all four dress.
I'd be stunned if they didn't. Yeah. You obviously remember this, that, and I can't remember all the personnel, but you remember the years when Lawrence Timmons would occasionally line up as an outside edge guy at times. I wonder if they don't have some sort of an emergency type plan where one of the inside guys has to go to the outside. Guys get hurt, and if they think Watt is going to struggle, then they might have to have something like that, because Jay Elliott, obviously he's capable, but I don't know if that's what you want to hang your hat on the whole game long. He's going to need a blow at times, but
I mean, you could do that with Gilbert, for example, but he hasn't had a hat all year,
right?
Has he?
I don't think
he has. He's played some special teams. I forgot.
Yeah,
he has. Yeah. So
it's just a thought.
He just hasn't had any. He hasn't had any snaps on D. You could do that. Yeah, you could. If you had to, you certainly could, and you could make him a pass rusher. Yeah, he's had a hat every game. He has not played any defensive snaps.
That's what I thought.
He is a core special teamer.
Yeah.
I mean, he's playing like 85% of the special team snaps. So he's
and wicked athletic kid. So, since we're talking defense, I do want to get your thoughts a little bit on something the Steelers have been doing a lot recently, and that's been that three safety look with Edmonds, obviously with Minkah Fitzpatrick, and then Cam Kelly. What is your overall view on this? We know that they seemingly have been wanting to do this in the past, and they obviously feel comfortable enough with it, but I don't know how good I feel with Cam Kelly back there, to be quite honest.
I don't know, man. Sometimes Cam Kelly can make a play, and other times it just seems like he's wasted space. I honestly don't know what to make of him yet. Maybe he's, he's certainly playing better than he played week 1. That was awful.
Yeah.
That was
for sure
awful. I mean, truly awful.
Yeah.
He's playing much better than that.
So
But
let me
you
put
really
it.
want to have him back there as your last line of defense, and that's where my trepidation comes from.
Right. What is for people listening? Why would the Steelers deploy this type of system? What is the goal by having the 3 safeties?
Basically not having to cover a wide receiver or a running back with a linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's it.
Yep. No, that's and I asked that and I mentioned that because that was Achilles' heel for this team. So
yeah, and even Mark Barron versus running backs has been bad. I mean, he just has. There's no other way to put it. And they asked him to lose weight, get lighter, because they knew they were going to have him in situations where he had to cover running backs and hopefully not wide receivers, but running backs. And he has not been good, man. He just hasn't.
No. I mean, it hasn't just been running backs. It's been fullbacks. It's been big tight ends that have beaten him.
Yeah. But Kyle Usage isn't really.
Oh, he's a
fullback.
I agree.
He's a guy who runs down the field and will lay out and catch it. That's
San Francisco kid.
Who was the guy? Was his name Larry Centers, the guy who played for the Cardinals for so long? Played fullback.
Yes, great player.
He was like that. He was that kind of a guy who did all the dirty work, but he was also good in the passing game, and he would just run out in the field, lay out, and catch the ball. Oh man.
Oh, he was one of those guys that when you watched him, and we probably had this feeling about a lot of guys that played for the Arizona Cardinals, but you'd watch him and you'd think, man, if that guy were on a better team, I mean, think of how many people would know about this guy.
Yeah.
And he was just a really, really good player, for sure. But a couple of things before we get on out of here, Ben. I did want to ask you, as I pull up my agenda that I just completely forgot here. There's 3 straight home games coming up. You've got the winless Dolphins. You've got a Colts team that has a very good defense, a wickedly good offensive line, an improving quarterback there, and then you've got the Rams coming in. Are these 3 must-win games if the Steelers are going to seriously entertain getting back in this?
Yes, they are. If the Steelers want to be taken seriously as a playoff team, they have to win the next 3 games. And I got to be honest, that's a tall order. It's not easy. The Colts are no joke. They really are not. And, we all know the Rams are a good team. I mean, they're not the Super Bowl champion, but they did win the NFC last year. They're a very good team. So, this is not a cakewalk by any stretch. And even Miami. I mean, I tweeted this out earlier this week. I really hope the players feel like, 1, they have their backs up against the wall, and 2, I hope they approach this like Miami's undefeated, not like they're winless. I hope they're thinking to themselves, we got to beat these guys and they're good, and that they approach it from that standpoint and get some momentum going, not barely eke out a win versus the Miami Dolphins, and then have the quarterback saying in a press conference after the fact, well, it's not time to panic, not time to panic. We've all seen that. We're all tired of it. What we need to have here, honestly, is a good old-fashioned blowout. And, where you just walk away and win easily, and, Hodges is playing cleanup at the end of the game because they sat Mason down because the score was up too high. That kind of a game is what we need here. And then they go into the following weekend with, a good feeling against a very good team. And then again, the weekend after that, they got another one. It's a tall order. So the next 4 weeks really are tough, because after that 3 weeks, they have Cleveland away And the NFL really tried to stack the deck. I talked about this before, but they tried to stack the deck here. Cleveland not only plays in the 1:00 time slot at home before the Sunday before they host the Steelers on Thursday.
Right.
The Steelers play at home, so they have to travel to Cleveland on Thursday, but they play in the 4:25 time slot. So Cleveland's game is already over, and they start the recuperation process before the Steelers ever kick off.
Yeah, and it might not sound like a lot, folks, but 3 to 4 hours is huge for recuperation.
Yeah,
for planning. And again, it's not as if the Steelers got to board a plane to go across the country. They'll bust their way up to Cleveland as they always do. But they're not getting any favors from the NFL on that scheduling. But you know this as well as I do. If the Miami game ends up being a nail biter and we win, there's going to be just wicked reaction. But if there is a blowout, it's going to be, well, that's what we're supposed to do. So I'm with you. I think we get through this game. You put a whooping on them. You approach this game like it is a big time game, because if you approach it any differently than that, you're going to get smacked in the face. I watched Miami last week against Buffalo. Buffalo's a physical football team, and Miami hung in there with them the whole game.
Yep.
And really, they've played fairly well the last several weeks. So I'm not expecting this to be easy, but yes, I do expect this to be a victory for the Steelers. I think they're going to be excited to be back at home. Monday Night Football, we have a great record on Monday night. I believe Tomlin does as well. So everything really does kind of add up here for the Steelers. Ben, am I forgetting anything? Did I not mention anything tonight?
Yeah, a bit. Let me see. We covered Skipper. We covered the defense, the 3 defensive back set or 3 safety set to it. No, I mean, no.
Yeah, we don't want to bore the people.
I mean, we're all looking forward to them cutting Dante Moncrief, but we don't have any indication that that's going to happen like imminently. So why talk about it?
Hey, and the rumors have already started that once Josh Gordon is cut from the Patriots, once he's released from the IR, that Mike Tomlin's going to go get him. So trade deadline in the NFL has become like the NBA. There's more rumors than you can ever imagine, and I'm not even going to go any further than that. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But anyway, make sure you are checking out the site, ladies and gentlemen, steelcityblitz.com. Follow us on Twitter at SCBlitz, or go to Facebook's. Did I say Facebooks? That's not what I meant. Facebook.com/SteelCityBlitz. We're also on Instagram and stuff too. And, feel free to always leave comments after articles and stuff. And also leave, we'd love if you review the podcast and, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. We're big boys. We can handle it if you don't like it. But it is what it is. Anyway, for Ben, this is Steel Dad, and I am signing off. This has been the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast, presented by 26shirts.com/Pittsburgh. And hey, go Steelers.
Ravens.